Hey guys, it's Carla. Today I'm painting tulips, and as usual I'm starting with my board already painted a solid color, so and you can use whatever color you want for the base coat. I like the idea that this painting has a lot of color in it, so you could actually use something even more springy or whatever for this, more Eastery or something. So I'm mixing up a watered down, kind of a dark green, watered down shade to go toward the bottom of the painting. And I'm just putting this on really messy, like just streaking it up and down. So in places I want it to be a little darker, and I just want a lot of stuff going on back there. So now I'm just putting some more color up in here. It's still watered down. I'm just adding different colors. Wipe my palette there. I use a glass palette. That's what I'm using right now. Sometimes I use a plate or whatever, but the glass palette is, I just made it out of an 11 by 14 picture frame. I took the glass out and put it on an 11 by 14 canvas panel, and then put duct tape all around it, and it has lasted for a long time. So now I've switched to a smaller flat brush, and I'm just brushing in some really bright blue up there. Okay, so the first thing I want to do with my tulips is decide what colors they're going to be. And they can all be the same color or have 3 different colors like I've done. So I just need a base coat for them. So I'm using, I dipped my brush in some extender, and I'm using it to thin this down. So I just need just a solid base color for each tulip. Now I'm showing you right here what happens if you don't wait for it to tack up a little bit. See how streaky it is, and you can't get it, when you rub it, it kind of takes the paint completely off. So you have to just wait for that to dry a little bit, and you can move on to the other tulips or whatever, but or you can blow dry it or whatever you want to do, but you just can't, when it's really wet like that, you can't go in and rub it. So I'm making my tulips different sizes along with different colors, and I want to think about my composition, like how my tulips are placed on there, so that they're pleasing to look at. Okay, so now that's tacked up enough to where I can come back and put some color in and rub it up into the other color. So I'm going to be putting a lot of different layered colors on all 3 of these flowers, and it doesn't really matter what colors you use, but your brush strokes and your finger strokes need to go in the right direction so that it kind of goes with the grain of the flower. So you're going to have darks toward the bottom and lights toward the top for the most part, but that's not a hard and fast rule. But so when I put either the darks or the lights on, I use my finger and smudge it down into the other color. So this keeps everything soft. So you want some hard edges, like the tops where maybe the light is shining on it, but then the bottom edge or the other edge, you want it to be kind of blurred out, and that keeps the flower looking soft even though you have those hard edges up there. And I'm just using a synthetic flat brush for all of this. So I want to make sure that I create some hard edges up there, because even though this is soft, like I said, you do need the hard edges. But while it's still wet, make sure that you blur out the edge that you don't want to be hard. It's just easier to do that while it's wet. If you wait until it dries, then you kind of have to basically re-wet it or paint different tones in it to make it look like it's blended. Now again, I'm just layering color. With each flower, I just want to pick colors that kind of go with it, or that are not necessarily the same color, but that go with that color. Like on the yellow, you could even put some greens or oranges, but as long as they kind of go with the color, then it's fine. And as you know, acrylic paint dulls down once it dries. So with this, you just have to keep coming back to it and putting more layers and more layers on top of it, so that it builds it up to the point that it's not dull anymore. So see right there, I'm even putting orange on my pink flower. So it looks good to just add different colors as long as they're not too different from each other. Now when I drag that color down, I'm barely touching the surface. I'm just kind of letting some of it rub off a little bit. And for most of this, if I'm using a dark color, I pull it up from the bottom. If I'm using a light color, I pull it down from the top, typically, because the lights are more toward the top and the darks are more toward the bottom. In this floral series that I'm doing, I want to try to get some of every kind of flower that I can think of. I started with a rose, and this is only the second painting in the series, so if there's any particular flower that you want me to paint, please leave it in the comments. Now I've thinned this down with some extender, and I'm going over the whole flower, and that just kind of brings everything together. That's not the last coat I'm putting on it, but when you put a glaze on it like that, then it just kind of pulls everything together. So now I'm going to start on my greenery. I'm not finished with my flowers yet, but I'm going to go ahead and start on my greenery. I'm still using that flat brush. So I've got some different shades of green right there. I'm going to start with my darker ones and put my stems in and some of my darker leaves. And I keep dipping in the extender because I want to keep it thin. And there's times here where I'll use the flat edge of the brush, and then there's times when I turn it and use the skinny edge. And usually when I'm making these big leaves like this, I start with it flat and then I twist it as I come up and turn it onto its edge. And I want to keep this really loose. Like I always say, if you get uptight with it, then it's going to look uptight when you finish it. It's going to show. So you want to just keep everything loose, keep your brush light, and keep it moving. Don't spend too much time in one area and don't put too much thought into it. And sometimes you can kind of reshape your flower just by putting the greenery around it. Okay, now if you'll notice, the blue on the painting is all up toward the left, and so I need to kind of bring that color into the rest of the painting. So even though grass is not blue, art doesn't have to make sense, it just has to look pretty. So I want to bring some of that color into other places. Now most of my highlights are going to be on the left-hand side of everything because that's where my light is coming from. And sometimes you just have to wait until all the paint dries and kind of see what else it needs, because like I said, it does dull down as it dries. As the paint as the water evaporates out of the paint, it dulls down, so usually you do have to come back and brighten it up. Now the reason I'm using extender instead of water is because I used water for that first application where I was just putting color onto the canvas, when I was just streaking that on. But that's because I wasn't concerned about the paint underneath. But now that I've got paint on the canvas, if I use water to thin down my paint, then it might interfere with the paint that's underneath, because water is a solvent. So it kind of dissolves the paint that you're putting it on. So if you're concerned about the paint that's underneath that you're painting on top of, then it's best to use extender or glazing liquid or something like that instead of water. So now I'm just putting, I'm kind of piling on paint and then dragging it down into the flower. And I'm putting more white than I want, because I'm going to come back and cover up some of it. But I need it on there to brighten it up, and that'll make more sense after a while. So that's really thick on there, and I'm leaving that top edge hard, but I'm dragging down the bottom edge. So while that's drying a little bit, I'm going to come back and put some more highlights on my stems and stuff. Okay, so now I'm thinning down some of the violet with my extender, just making a glaze, and then I'm dragging up into it, and I'm not dragging all the way up to cover up all the white. I'm leaving that top edge, so I'm just kind of feathering it up. And I've decided I want more white right here to brighten that flower up. Okay, so now the yellow flower, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm making a glaze and dragging it up, but not all the way up. And now the same thing with the pink. I'm just picking up some red and making a glaze. So see, with that white underneath there, it brightens it up more. So now I'm just brushing some more color into the background. So this is all about layering color, just layer on top of layer. And the more layers you have, the more interest it gives your painting. It looks more textured, and it gives it more interest. Okay, now with just water on my brush, I can create some soft edges by just rubbing that edge with a wet brush, and that kind of blurs it out, and then you just drag the color that you've got on your brush from the flower, just drag it out into the background. So if you want to soften any of your edges, this is the way to do it. But you always want some soft edges and some hard edges. If everything is hard, then it looks really flat. If everything is soft, it looks really flat. So you really have to have both. And what I typically do is soften the edge that is away from the light, so that's more in shadow, so that it almost disappears. Sometimes I create like a lost edge where you can't even tell where the edge ends. Okay, so now I'm making a glaze with yellow and white, a very thin glaze with my fan brush. And I want to make sure that everything else is done first before I do this step, because this is, you can't really go back after this. So just a really thin glaze. And then I'm just going to tap the fan brush onto my finger and create these little splatters. And you can do as much or as little of this as you want. And that's it, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and God bless you.